Josh and Frankie. What a couple of dumb shits.
Hello, primates! You found Primus tracks. Congratulations! There are so many places to find Primus tracks. This is one of them. You can also find us at Primus Tracks on Instagram. We are at Primus Tracks on Threads. There's a Facebook page called, you guessed it, Primus Tracks. And we have an email address if you would like to send a message that is based in text through some tubes. All you have to do is email primustrackspod@gmail.com. I am Josh. I'm just rumbling right along. And he is on the 39th floor of Primus Tracks Towers. He doesn't smell any diesel up there because the air is clean, clear, and delicious. This is Frankie Bearstein.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, Frankie. What a day this has been already. We are recording this on June 3rd, 2025, 30 years to the day that Primus performed at RFK Stadium as part of some kind of festival in Washington, D.C., and 30 years to the day that that took place. A pro shot video is uploaded to YouTube, and we are enjoying the bejesus out of it.
Incredible footage. So crisp, so clear. Such a dry soundboard, which I enjoyed tremendously. I just want to highlight what a trip it was. Whatever they were doing with nut butter, it almost gave me a seizure, but it was worth it because it's incredible to see this footage. Joe Gore on Tweakers.
Yes.
Les getting upset during Winona.
I believe this set was not their greatest shining moment. He certainly is annoyed in numerous spots throughout the set. They had tech issues, and people were throwing stuff on the stage. I'm guessing they couldn't hear each other in their monitors.
We had enjoyed the audio for many years. I never thought that we would actually get the video. So, yeah, when that got uploaded, it was quite a surprise.
Credit to the uploader. The link is on the Primus Tracks Facebook page, and I will also put it in the show notes. It's a great way to spend 45 minutes. Today we are talking about Rumble of the Diesel. It is track 9 on your Of Whales and Woe release. Let's set the mood, Frankie. Let's get a little bit of a typical fishing boat engine sound. That'll make for some nice background noise today. And or put the listeners to sleep. So let's see what happens, Frankie. So here we are, we're idling. I feel like I'm in the boat with Captain Shiner, actually, on the enhanced CD, Frankie. This is very...
Is this the Bastard boat?
Yes, we're on the Bastard boat. I feel it's quite reminiscent of my ECD experience from Punch Bowl. So we're just going to idle along, I think, for a while today. And as, of course, what we do most episodes, we have some miscellaneous debris. Today's miscellaneous debris is Iowan Gal-based, Frankie. First of all, I forgot to read the Primates takes for Iowan Gal when we did that episode, and I apologize profusely to our wonderful Primatrons. So, a double dose of Primates takes today. The first set of Primates takes is for Iowan Gal, and I will read that here. Our good pal, Skulligan Val, said, Iowan Gal is the cutest thing Les has made. The pared down instrumentals lend itself to the romance of the song. Just a man and his banjee telling his wife how he likes to spank her round bottom. The banjee gives me goosebumps. Brooks Delight. Uh-oh. Brooks is going to break it down. Brooks breaks it down as follows, Frankie. I'm a sucker for a good love song, and they are not plentiful in the Claypool catalog, so this is a real treat. The bass banjo sounds great. Nobody could have guessed how close it was to being retired. I especially loved the solo performances of American Life and Iowan Gal that Les would often do on the supporting tour. There. Look at that. In record time, Brooks has taken our jobs. We're only a few minutes into the episode. And I also wanted to play this, and I think I'll play it again later in the episode when we have our Primates takes for Rumble of the Diesel. Brooks, you're so good at breaking it down. Our Pal KO played a little bass lick for you, and this is your new jingle.
Brooks breaks it down.
So now you know it's coming every time. Moving along with our Primates takes for Iowan Gal, left over from last time. John Shreve says, Iowan Gal seems like an apology song for less stings.
Wow.
Edwin Allen Richards IV, our landed gentry, says, I miss when Iowan Gal used to be the encore for fancy band fungi ensemble shows. Somewhere in the depths of storage, I have a mini DV tape from a handheld Sony cam I smuggled into a show, and the only thing I filmed that night was the encore of Iowan Gal, because I thought I'd get into trouble for unauthorized filming. Eric in Australia, our resident curmudgeon, is softening up a little bit for Iowan Gal, Frankie. He says, less is such a sweet thing. Cheney is a lucky gal.
Yes, absolutely.
And we'll close this part of Primates Takes with Adrian Porter, who says, longtime Primatron, first-time caller. Iowan Gal used to be a skip for me, actually. I'm not sure what turned me off, but over the years I've warmed up to it, especially the part where it just takes off. Wonder if he made this because Cheney mentioned she didn't like less stings, or it just worked out like that. I'm pretty sure it just worked out like that. But what a nice way to balance it out in an inadvertent way. So speaking of Iowan Gal, we have some further miscellaneous debris in that we received word from an anonymous listener, Frankie, that a piece of information from that episode, is not entirely accurate.
Please go ahead.
So I believe you had cited an interview in which Les said he had been asked by his spouse, when are you going to write a song about me? And Iowan Gal was the eventual result of that request. But we've heard from people in positions of knowledge that that's not the case. And that it was a total surprise. That's what we've been told.
Yes, I'll keep searching for the quote. Unfortunately, the RAM website has gotten lots of dead ends nowadays. A lot of those interviews lead to dead. The links are dead now. It's impossible to retrieve the interviews. And back in 2016 or 2015, when I was dedicated to reading every single interview I could find online, I'm almost certain it was there on RAM on a late 90s interview where I read that quote, and it stood out because of the context. Because in hindsight, by the time I read it, I knew that Iowan Gal had been created. So it was kind of interesting to read that perspective. But until I'm able to unearth the quote, yes, I guess we'll have to leave it at that. However, I do have two interesting quotes that I was able to discover during my hunt. Here's an interview where they ask Les about the bass banjo, and he said, "Oh, the banjo bass? I play the banjo bass a lot lately. I had it made for me many years ago by a friend of mine that actually was the older brother of one of my good friends from high school. He had made me a couple of instruments, and I just said, hey, can you make me a bass with a banjo body? And so he did. It kind of sat around for a long time. It was on a couple of Primus records, but then I just started busting it out lately. I've really been playing it quite a bit. Obviously, there's a song on the record, Iowan Gal, which is a dedication to my lovely wife. So now I played that quite a bit. In fact, I'm playing a festival later this summer where it's just me. So I'm going to play a predominantly bass banjo set. So I'm going to get my Woody Guthrie on." So there's a little bit of background regarding that instrument. And we did mention at some point that Les said remember that quote where he said there would be no keyboards in Primus?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got that right here. To sell 500,000 copies of an album in the United States is not a small thing. That's a lot of fans. To which Les replied, "That's true, I'll take it." And then the interviewer asked, "How has it affected you?" And Les replied, "Well, I bought a house in the country. There's always the paranoia that they're all going to go away before you put out your next project, or when you put out your next project, they'll go, So how has it affected us? As far as creating or anything, it hasn't really affected us. If anything, we're just trying to keep being Primus as opposed to incorporating horn sections and keyboards. Trying to be true to what we have made so far and not altering it for Pepsi commercials or anything. So there you go. That's the keyboard quote.
Ah, all right. Speaking of Pepsi commercials, I was dinking around with some old interviews as well, and I think Lefkowitz had mentioned that they were offered by Toyota an ad campaign using one of their songs, and in one of those older interviews, they mentioned that it was "Here Come the Bastards." That would have been the tune in the Toyota ad. How bizarre! What a choice! Oh, Toyota. I'm glad they said no. Well, that's the miscellaneous debris. Gosh, there's corn all over the place after this Iowan Gal rehashing. So let's move forward with Rumble of the Diesel. It is
the hips of the record.
We've already established that. Yeah, Les helped us out with that, so we don't have to debate it today. It's track 9 on your Of Wales and Woe disc. Checks in at 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Credits are as follows: Les Claypool, bass, vocals, guitar, percussion; Mike Dillon, or Jazz Dad, on drums and marimba. I think this is the only track on the record that someone other than Les plays drums. Interestingly, uncredited in the liner notes is Skerrick on saxophone. So he's not credited in the original CD release liner notes for this track, Frankie, and he's also not credited on the vinyl reissue in the box set. I don't own an original vinyl, so I'm not certain if he's credited appropriately on there. I am 100% sure it's just an oversight.
Yeah, most likely.
You usually do the track history, but I wanted to look up some numbers about this record. I'm not too surprised by what I found, Frankie, which is Rumble of the Diesel has been performed over 200 times, and it is by far the most performed track from this record. Over 200 performances of this one. One better has been performed 163 times. These numbers are courtesy of Toasterland, and because this record was released in 2006, we have pretty complete set lists from 2006 on, so those numbers pretty darn accurate. No other track on this record has been performed over 100 times. So Diesel far and away the most common live track from this record. Does that surprise you at all?
Not at all, because Les has a blast whenever he performs this song live. The cadence, the structure, it's just really fun for him to play. And there's even space for improvisation and a bass solo in each rendition.
You know that's important.
We do have 2 studio recordings of Wales and Woe and Duo the Twang, and you have an official live version available on the Fancy DVD. Rumble of the Diesel was performed extensively by the Fancy Band. It was also performed by the Fungi Band. The torch was then passed on to Duo the Twang. The song was resurrected by the Frog Brigade for their Summer of Green tour. It was also performed in the fall. It was also performed on New Year's Eve the last year. And it has also been performed at assorted wine parties. So it's definitely a staple Claypool solo number.
That's right, Claypool Gold, New Year's Eve, 24-25. It was.
And in Les's own words, he has described this song as a song about a laugh chasing tuna.
It's about the most literal, matter-of-fact summary of these lyrics one could create. Well, he's not wrong. And, of course, he's literally chasing tuna. He may metaphorically be chasing something else. This track is of interest to me because it is so widely performed and more common than all the others. And, of course, we just got it on New Year's Eve at the Claypool Gold show, shows, excuse me, which was of great interest because Larry played guitar on it.
Yes.
Which, of course, first time ever that's happened. So that was a special performance in and of itself. The track itself has a really cool groove to it, and as you said, and it is the hips of the record, because it certainly is a dance number. When you see it on the fancy DVD or any other live footage, this is when people are really getting down in the audience. And of course, it has solo turns from Mike D and Skerrick. I do want to mention Skerrick's brief sax solo, because that one, Frankie, when people pretend, when they're miming playing saxophone and pretending to do it, what Skerrick plays is what I imagine I'm playing when I play the air saxophone. It just sounds like something an air saxophone would play. It makes no sense, but it does in my head. We get really cool parts in this one, and it's super catchy. This is probably one of the more accessible Les Claypool / Primus songs you will ever hear.
When people are pretending to play air saxophone, I hear Careless Whisper in my mind. But yes, it's one of the most compelling tracks on the record, and I particularly like the part where Les modifies the riff to build a crescendo. The first time is very short, but the second time, after the final verse, where he doubles that, it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite moments when they perform the song live.
Yes, and I believe I know what part you're talking about because I have it noted.
Excellent.
In my notes as well. Let's kill the engine, and let's hear some excerpts from the tune. I do want to point to a couple of spots here. Let's, of course, play the intro so we can understand what it is that we're dealing with here. Really great start. I will say I was faked out by him starting the bass lick clean and then moving to the envelope filter. And yes, for some, that is glorious. It certainly is catchy, Frankie, and it gets me moving. Mike D's playing a pretty understated drum part, and he is just holding it down back there. And I can't remember. Luke passed along some things Mike D said about being on this record, and he did mention playing drums on Rumble, but I don't remember if he gave a reason as to why he played drums on this and Les didn't. But I want to move forward to about a minute and a half into the tune because we get some really solid grooving. I love that inverted line that Les does underneath the end of Mike's solo there. And then get your air saxophones ready. Pretend you're playing Rumble of the Diesel or Baker Street or something like that. Who cares? I love that for the last few bars, he's just hitting that same note that the percussion is there.
That's the bass solo.
Yeah. Love this lick. So they're giving us all kinds of good stuff throughout this. Now let's get to Frankie's favorite part, the ascending line. that gets his hips moving.
I love that part.
And then it releases to the chorus.
It is fabulous.
That's a really nice
And
arrangement there.
it's worth pointing out in the Duo the Twang version that Les did some layering with the vocals. At this point, he's very masterful in doing that. We talked about the three vocals coming at you at the same time on Sinister Exaggerator.
Right.
And if you listen to the Duo the Twang version, he will do one vocal take, which is very reminiscent of his usual voice, but there's another layer of vocals which are like really ominous, and it really adds different flavor to the song, I think, besides the fact that, of course, it's an acoustic rendition.
For sure. There's a lot of great vocalizations on this one as well, and my favorite is the high-pitched, I like that's going near the very end. So that's a little earworm. Just that's it. I like the rumble of the diesel. It's great.
I do have some background. When you mentioned Mike, I have some background regarding the musicians. This comes from Rock World. They ask Les, you have several different guest musicians on the record. How and why did you decide to have who on which track? And Les replied, I didn't have as many on this record as I normally have. I had sort of my usual cast of characters, Skerrick, Mike, and Gabby. My kids is leading there on a tune because they sort of just happened to be in the studio, banging on something one day, and it kind of sounded cool. I have these skeletons of songs laying around, and I'll bring them in. Mike will be touring through town, and I'll say, hey, come up to the house for a day or so, and he'll come up, and we'll just hang out in the studio, and I'll put something up and say, I bet this might sound good with a little marimba. Oh, it might sound good with little vibes on this song. And he'll bang something out, and it either works or it doesn't. Most of the time it does. The same with Gabby. I brought Gabby over. I could use a little sitar on this song. And Skerrick, he played on almost the entire record. It's hard to keep him off from my stuff. He adds a lot of flavor. He's like Tabasco. And I tend to put Tabasco on lots of things.
That's a great description.
Yes. And I also want to share some perspective. Getting kind of ahead because this deals with the lyrics, but for the longest time, because this song has a lot of things that hint at Les in kind of an autobiographical way. For a long time, I was under the impression that he was singing about his own life, but this quote makes me think that Rumble of the Diesel might be yet another character study on the record. So they ask, what is the lyrical idea behind the title track, and why did you choose it to be the main track? So that refers, of course, to Whales and Woe. Yeah. And Les said, I like the imagery. I like the entire line, the tales of whales and woe of his liquor tongue will flow. I don't know what mental picture it paints for you, but I get something old and salty. And by salty, I mean high mileage, a weathered individual who has been around the block or around the horn, however you want to look at it, spewing their jaded tales on the world and whatnot. So it just got shortened down to Whales and Woe. But I think it's an accurate title for the record because there are a lot of characters in the songs. To me, it's a very lyrically folksy collection of tunes. There are those Casey Jones type characters and the stories of Tom Joad going over the pass with old Model T, losing his brakes halfway across. I just get a lot of images from these songs. Obviously, there's Rumble of the Diesel, a fella chasing tuna, the guy losing his wife to melanoma and having to carry on with his life, turning to the sea. And it seems to me, my steps musically are very rarely calculated. It just tend to be more a collection of random moments that get captured at various points during the recording period. Like I said, could be spotted over a 2-year period. So this just seems to be sort of a Saturday evening post of Claypool Records. You know what I mean? It's very Norman Rockwell. So it seems like Rumble of the Diesel is yet another character that he's singing about that turns into the sea when life gets hard, just like many of the characters in the songs of this album.
Yeah, the Norman Rockwell reference holds for me. Rockwell being a well-known popular artist in the 20th century, and many of his stuff did appear in the Saturday Evening Post, if I recall. We had a lot of Rockwell calendars when I was a kid, actually.
Yeah.
And so he just took those little slices of life and put them in his paintings, and a lot of people identified with them. And I think that's what Les is getting at with some of these stories. So our character in Rumble of the Diesel, and let's go ahead and turn to the lyrics, actually. We should turn this back on while we talk about it, though. Yeah, that's better. I'm comforted. So he is certainly taking on the persona of a guy who works the fishing boats. And as you intimated, some of this could apply to the author of the lyrics. And I would agree, some of it can. But he's certainly putting forth this character to show the ups and downs and challenges of the fishing world. And I think I said something similar on the Of Whales and Woe discussion, which is, he knows a guy like this. And so this could be based on someone he knows. It could be an amalgamation of a bunch of old salty fishermen. My brother-in-law worked on the fishing boats in Alaska years and years ago. He's considerably older than I am, but he's got tons of stories, and there's plenty of guys he would tell stories about, and some of these guys sound like old whatever the name of this guy is, because he's first person. But whoever this guy is, like I've heard stories about this guy too from the Alaskan fishing boats. So this is
there's ringing in my ears. It's definitely autobiographical.
that's one element that could certainly be autobiographical. And then the other part is the just being out on the water nullifies the pain, because Les has said a million times he goes fishing to clear his mind, relax, and
exactly,
and find some peace. And it's fun to catch fish. So the rest of it certainly, and I think we've talked about this before, mentioned it in passing, that this one probably an unofficial Fisherman's Chronicle, right?
Yes, and Errol would find his way onto the next record with his very own song dedicated to him.
Right, you can't tell Errol anything. I would assume that's the same Errol.
I percolate my coffee off the radiator boil always puts me in the mindset of The Simpsons. I don't know about you.
Tell me how.
Because there's an episode where they are frying eggs on a motor.
Oh.
And yeah.
So, this was a pretty common thing, actually. You have the the engines and whatnot, everything produces heat, so why not warm your coffee or cook your food on one of those hot surfaces? And so I think they were doing that down in the bowels of the Titanic too. Those guys that were working it were just keeping their food warm there. There's a lot of little turns of phrase as well. So I got the eyeballs of an eagle. Usually you would hear somebody described as eagle-eyed, but I like eyeballs of an eagle for sure. And then the ring in my ears, this could be from just years and years of the actual rumble of the diesel, right? Creating some tinnitus. And the next couplet, Granddad was a farmer, but I couldn't stand the soil. I had to go out to sea, and I keep it simple. It helps to keep me sane. I like the floating in the ocean. It nullifies the pain. So we're really getting to know this guy. He's essentially married to the sea. He doesn't know anything else, and it's the only thing that keeps him grounded.
And it could also, if we look at it like really deeply, it can also refer back to Les in a kind of autobiographical way, because Grandad was a farmer, but I couldn't stand the soil, so this guy took a different path in his life. And Les has mentioned that he came from a long line of auto mechanics, right?
Sure, yeah, taking a different tack.
Exactly. So he took his life on a different direction.
Yeah. And then that couplet, some work to make the bread rise, I like to plow the ocean swell. So once again, we're getting that contrast. Errol's got a sweet Monterey, rigged for salmon and crab. Never had a family unless you count that old yellow lab. So he's
very well written lyrics.
Yes,
very clever.
Very cool. At least he's got a dog. I had to look up a Monterey, Frankie, because I don't know any. My knowledge of boats couldn't fill a thimble. So I looked up the Monterey boat, and it turns out the Monterey Clipper is a type of fishing boat that is common to San Francisco Bay, Monterey Bay, and that part of California. And there were hundreds of them out and about in the early 20th century. And they were one of the more popular types of boats on the bay there. And eventually they became outmoded. I'm just going to read to you from Wikipedia. It says, today this boat is too small, too slow, and inadequate for commercial fishing. But in its day, it was perfect for catching sardines and all kinds of other, and crabs, and all kinds of other sea life.
Yes.
And taken right to market or right to the canning plant. And you can see plenty of Monterey Clippers in San Francisco Bay still. I think a lot of people just use them for leisure. But it's a very distinctive style, and if you see it, you'll say, oh, that's what that is. Especially if you visit the Bay Area, they're still out and about. Les also mentions a Cummins Repower. He spells it Cummings, but the brand name is Cummins, and that is a diesel engine. And apparently there's a pretty sweet-looking R2.8 turbo diesel available, Frankie, so if you need to power your boat, sounds like a good one. We might be hearing that idling right now. I have no idea what engine this is, but it's a pretty common fishing boat engine that we're hearing at any rate.
And I love the bass solo. I think it fits the song so well.
Oh, for sure. I love it. Yeah, anytime he takes a moment to solo, I'm listening. And so you were mentioning that part, looking back to 95, had that Cummins Repower, Dragon Lines for albacore, which is tuna. Market goes sour. We were going to go on strike because the price was driven down, and then we finally settled up. We got less than $1 a pound. So once again, the album is called Whales and Woe. There's a lot of woe in this track. These guys aren't making much money off the tuna.
But not in the same degree as the other tracks, because there are some very tragic characters on this record. There are some cautionary tales on the record, but I don't get that vibe from Rumble of the Diesel. To me, it just sounds like a slab of life with ups and downs, just like any human being is bound to experience during their lifetime. And the compelling aspect of the music, I think it's a reflection of the theme about the engines, the motors, the diesel. But the lyrics themselves, I think, they are not portraying anything particularly tragic. They're just a reflection of life itself.
I'm buying that. Yeah, and this guy doesn't know anything else. It's being out at sea chasing tuna. That's what he does. That's what he knows, and that's what keeps him from losing his mind. And I did want to point out too that chorus, just the delivery. I like the rumble of the diesel and the smell of the oil. I percolate my coffee off the radiator boil, and that cadence is really fascinating to me because you hear a lot of iambs, and I've mentioned this before, probably plenty of times. So iambs are when you have a pair of syllables, the second one is stressed, which is such as, shall I compare thee to a summer's day, right? So here though, he's using a lot of trochees where the first word in a two-word meter there is stressed. But then he leads it off with I like the. And so there's this, it's kind of like a dactyl where the first one is stressed and the second two are unstressed, but it seems like all three are stressed to me. So I'm just going to call it a triplet. So there's I like the, rumble of the diesel and the smell, and he kind of makes smell a two-syllable word in the lyrics, smell of the oil, and he makes oil a two-syllable word, and he seems to stress the first syllable of each of those pairs, and that makes for a compelling rhythm to it, and I think that's part of the reason why it's so damn catchy. So he's doing some interesting stuff here that he doesn't always do with his lyrics. It just, you're right, it just fits right in with the music and the message. So it's like a mantra, right? I like the rumble of the diesel. I like the rumble of the diesel. This is what I'm attracted to. This is what I do. It becomes his identity, almost. And those of you, if you're still listening, and if you've been listening to the rumble of the diesel in the background, so you might feel the call of the sea, and I apologize. It's Frankie's fault.
Got some primate takes lying around there.
If you would like your takes for the track up for discussion read on this podcast, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/Primus Tracks. There are many tiers of support over there. Some would say they are questionable, but the universal constant is I put up the thread for the track, and I then read your comments here on the podcast. And if I'm doing my job right, I read them for the actual episode. So once again, I apologize to all the wonderful people who had comments for Iowa and Gal that we didn't get to last time, or in that episode, excuse me. So, running it back down for Primate's takes for Rumble of the Diesel. Skulligan Val says, Rumble of the Diesel is one of my top skipped songs. It's fun live, but the album recording, that's Frankie clutching his pearls, by the way. Val continues, it's fun live, but the album recording has an on and off again, high-pitched something or other that hurts my brain. Pause. I know what you're talking about, Val. I heard it when I was screening the tune for the episode. There is a weird, high-pitched something near the end. That is where I heard it. Val continues, it's a literal ringing in my ears. The first time I noticed it, I was barreling down the freeway shortly after the album release. I thought my car was making the sound and had a moment of panic. This track plus Lust Stings makes me think twice about playing the album. I do love some fancy band, though. And I get to play this again, Frankie.
Brooks breaks it down.
Brooks Delight says, Rumble of the Diesel is a super fun song. I especially like the vocal flow in the chorus. I always try to sing along, but rarely nail every syllable. As good as the album version is, this is another one where I really prefer the live versions with the fancy band. Claypool's deeper vocals on the chorus blend perfectly with Gabby's higher register. I really miss that band. John Shreve says, Rumble is anthemic, incredible in all live variations, a Mike Dillon heavy piece. Eyeballs of an eagle but ringing in the ears paints the perfect picture of a seasoned commercial fisherman, and as a fisherman named John, I'm here for the lore. Well, there we go. We have ourselves a fisherman named John over there in the Patreon, Frankie. Edwin Allen Richards IV, our landed gentry, is back, and he says Rumble is another killer track that seems to epitomize Claypool's catalog and general vibe. Like a theme song, for less, if you will. Some of my favorite of his lyrics, and a guarantee to get the crowd bouncing. Eric in Australia says Rumble is an unofficial Fisherman's Chronicle. There, boom. Now it's officially unofficial. Thank you, Eric. He continues, that feels very verbose to me. Old Errol is quite the recurring character unless his Bay Area alternate universe. And finally, Adrian Porter, longtime Prime Matron, second-time caller now, says, I think that Rumble is actually my favorite song on this album. I always have this visual in my head of Les popping his head up from behind something with the extra, I like the parts coming through the right speaker near the end of the song. Adrian, that is a fantastic image. Thank you for sharing. Those are the Primate takes, Frankie. And what are you taking away from them?
In a really brave yet controversial moment, I will agree that this is another unofficial Fisherman Chronicle, and the line that I notice with these chronicles is that the songs are always epic. If it's a Fisherman Chronicle, it's a classic.
Who knew that writing songs about fishing would be quite the lure for many fans? Thank you very much. Live cuts from
A jam vehicle.
live cuts from the jam vehicle. Live cuts from.
What's going on here?
I'll tell you what's going on here. It's live cuts time. Today we have 3 beautiful live versions of Rumble of the Diesel. Our first is from NPR World Cafe. Great quality on this recording from 2006. We're going to hear a couple of pieces from that one. And once again, this is still available if you search for NPR World Cafe Les Claypool. It's there for the streaming. First part we're going to hear, Frankie says it's the chorus all the way to the Viagra phone. Let's see what that's all about.
Never had a family unless you count that old yellow lamp. I like the rumble of the diesel and the smell of the oil that burns.
Gabby.
Coffee of the radiator boil. I've been chasing tuna nearly 27 years. Got eyeballs of an eagle with the stringers in my ears. I like the rumble of the diesel and the smell of the oil. Granted was a farmer, but I cruised down the soil. I like to keep it simple. They have to keep me sane like floating in the ocean and none of finds of me.
Oh, yeah. Frankie, more than your hips are moving right now. You are dancing up a storm over there. Man, that's great sounding. Gabby does bring an extra element. I think Brooks did mention that, which is spot on.
Yes, absolutely.
And this tune in a live setting, I'm reminded, listening to this rendition, it feels a bit more stop-start than what's on the record, too. But that doesn't impede one's danceability to this track, in my opinion. Let's hear Ski Rack.
Looking back to 95.
Ah, yeah.
Fresh coming to 3 power. Dragon.
And not to be outdone, we're going to end on the bass solo, because that's what you do for a Les Claypool track.
The ocean with all of our break.
Would you call that an envelope delight?
Envelope delight, for sure.
Excellent. Our next live track is from the Whales and Woe live sessions, which is once again Frankie's fictional box set, which will be released on the, I believe, in 2036 for the 30th anniversary of this record. All right, this does have no metadata once again, so please direct all complaints to Frankie Berestein. You know what? I take that back. This is from July 15, 2006. That date is in the file name. Yes.
Excellent.
Open hi-hat. Yeah. Now I imagine
tight,
that's
very tight
Paolo.
drumming.
That's Paolo,
Yeah, it's
right?
Paolo.
Yeah, he's doing
Very
great.
tight.
Very nice. And it just wouldn't be appropriate if we didn't feature the bass solo on this one as well. I didn't want to oversell it that you had labeled this in all caps as an epic bass solo, but I can see why this might qualify.
And for a moment there, it was kind of an inverted Toys Go Winding Down. Did you catch that?
A lot of triplets happening there.
Yeah.
Our last live cut is the Fungi Band.
Playing
Playing some Rumble, yeah. And so we're going to hear a sample of Sam Bass. This is from May 23, 2009 in summer camp at Chillicothe, Illinois.
And in case you're wondering, we did not sample the legendary Bonnaroo performance because we already sampled that when we did the LSD.
And far be it from us to make you hear something twice.
Yeah.
Here's summer camp. Oh, man, that sounds great. Good old Sam.
Very dramatic performance.
Nice work. Locking in with Les, too, and doing that note. Let's finish it the way we started. Let's finish it the way we finished it with the other two, with a bass solo. Now, I didn't want to say anything, but you did not label this one as epic. Is there any reason why?
Because the previous one was so epic. I didn't want to take away from that, labeling this one epic as well. I think this one is outstanding.
Okay, which is that's half an inch below epic, right?
Exactly, just a little.
Yeah, it's a really crowded list up there on the epic and
Yes.
outstanding tiers. Those are our live cuts. Thanks, Frankie.
I have loved Rumble of the Diesel ever since I heard the Wales and Woe record for the first time. I definitely think it's one of the Les Claypool solo catalog highlights. A showstopper for sure, with all the cohesion he has with the band, and of course the spot for his bass solo. And I was so excited to get this song live on New Year's Eve the last year.
Sweet.
It is a great one, and it's certainly danceable. It gets the hips moving, and it's a lot of fun. I do recall this one being one I would return to with this record upon release in 2006. Highly enjoyable track. It's a good thing because it's the most widely performed of the record. So I guess I'll say this, Rumble of the Diesel, you've been tracked. Next time, Frankie, mechanized poultry.
That's fantastic.
I'm not even sure what that means, so you guys all have to tune in to find out what mechanized poultry is in reference to. Primates, primatrons, people of Earth, old fishermen out at sea, barely getting enough of a satellite Wi-Fi signal to listen to this. Thank you all so much for your support, and hit us up on the socials with your takes on these wonderful tracks. We'll see you next time for some mechanized poultry. Later days.
Willie Mays.
Don't breathe too deep on that diesel now, boy.